has Jehovah answered your prayer? We know that all in attendance here today, whether parents or not, will benefit from the final talk on today's program. It is entitled, Teach Your Children to Love God's Kingdom, and it will be given by Brother Anthony Morris. Brother Morris, we are eager to hear what you have to tell us.
Every family in heaven and on earth owes its name to Jehovah God. Now, Jehovah originally intended for mankind to populate this earth, make it a paradise. Of course, we all know the devil and Adam and Eve interrupted Jehovah's purpose. But for our thinking here, for this final talk, the thrust here is to help all of us to slow down and view each family member as either a subject of God's kingdom or potentially a subject of God's kingdom. Now, if you carefully note on your program theme, see, it is not teach your children to believe in God's kingdom. Teach your children to love God's kingdom. Frankly, some have believed God's kingdom. They know this is the truth. But when they love God's kingdom, they'll become a subject and remain a subject of God's kingdom. So, first of all, we're going to look at married couples, some thoughts, scriptural thoughts, endeavor to help. Anything that we pass on you is intended to motivate you to apply the counsel. Jehovah does not induce his people by motivate them, I should say, by inducing guilt. So it's not that we're trying to make you feel guilty. However, if you see that you're not applying what we consider, well, Jehovah wants you to do something about that. And then what happens if a couple as a child come along, or children, as I still remember my wife and I pioneering for years together there, a few years, and then when our first son came along, I vividly remember the first day out in the field ministry on a Saturday and what that 8 pounds did to the two of us. And some of you that have children, because when it was time to go out, my wife Sue grabbed her bag, I grabbed my bag, away we went. And I was usually sitting in the car waiting. But this time, you get into the territory, it was a walking territory, we had the stroller, I mean, all the things you have to take for 8 pounds. It's a joy, we love it. And then his brother came along 19 months later. Oh boy. Even more work in the field service. So you have to be able to adapt to the changing circumstances. And then we want to train our children to, as we mentioned a moment ago, love God's kingdom. But there's certain things that parents have to be careful of. You have to adapt to the uniqueness of each child. So pay attention to that. Perhaps you're not doing that. Your child or children will become frustrated and you're going to lose out on the opportunity to teach them to love God's kingdom all too often. So let's invite you to turn to Micah chapter 6, and we'll begin here with what Jehovah expects from couples, married couples. Micah chapter 6 and verse 8. This is what Jehovah wants married couples to do. Let's read verse 8, Micah 6:8. Applies to all, but we're applying it particularly to couples at the moment. He has told you, O man, what is good. And what is Jehovah requiring of you? Only to exercise justice, to cherish loyalty, and to walk in modesty with your God. So a marriage needs to have the couple exercising justice, being fair with each other, and cherishing loyalty, this loyal love for each other. So there's not going to be any of this flirting with someone that's not your mate. Like I've told folks for years, you want to flirt? Flirt with your wife. You want to flirt? Flirt with your husband. That's okay. You flirted with each other before you got married. You just seem to have forgotten. It's the devil's word, trying to get people to flirt with each other. It's offensive to God and to the marital arrangement. It's disloyal, period. So, it takes a lot of effort, there's no doubt about it, for married couples. It takes faith, it takes love, it takes patience. And I'll take the moment to commend my wife, because you can't imagine the patience it takes for her to have to travel all over the world. She never dreamed she'd be flying all over the planet on behalf of Kingdom Interests. A lot of patience. If you haven't been in an airport lately, try it out soon. The patience it takes to put up with all the things that go on in an airport. And some of you that flew here, you understand that. Try being in a plane for about 20 some hours. It takes faith. It takes patience. So we think of all those brothers that are married, the hospitality committee, the patience and loyalty of their wives, the convention committee, department heads and assistants, the love, the loyalty, the patience, supporting these brothers as they work hard on behalf of the Kingdom Ministers for such a large convention. Now, follow along. We move back here in the middle of your Bible to Psalm 19. Now, there's some profound thoughts here. You're not unfamiliar with them. Most of us in attendance are Jehovah's Witnesses. Others of you that are new will benefit immensely, especially if you're married. The problem that some have, because every marriage is going to have difficulty. Now, I tease the Bethelites, and I have for the past few months, and for the married couples anyway, I say, just remember that in a marriage, there's the person that's right, and then there's the husband. when you get that straight, it's a great life. So you have to have a good sense of humor and tease, and of course all the sisters are going, trying to tell that man for years. But you do have challenges. Well, how are you going to handle the challenges? How do you cope with them? Well, frankly, don't look to Dr. You-know-who. That's really offensive to Jehovah. God, I've known dedicated, baptized witnesses of God going on the internet or watching television trying to help their marriage. You have perfect advice right here. This is absurd. This is perfect counsel. The problem is some go through problems rather than grow through problems. When you're having problems, you should grow spiritually through them by applying Bible principles. It's not complicated, but it's hard to apply it. You have to research. Then you have to do what you just read. It's humbling. Now let's read verses 8 through 11 and look at the wisdom Jehovah gives married couples. Psalm 19, 8 through 11. The orders from Jehovah are righteous, causing the heart to rejoice. Everybody wants that. The commandment of Jehovah is clean, making the eyes shine, not all red from rubbing them from tears over a fight you just had with your husband or your wife. The fear of Jehovah is pure, lasting forever. The judgments of Jehovah are true, altogether righteous. They are more desirable than gold and much fine gold, and sweeter than honey, the honey that drips from the combs. By them your servant has been warned. In keeping them there is a large reward. Principles. So you may not clearly understand the principle. You see it's here, you do a little research. But then some married couples in God's organization, the earthly part, they have a problem. The problem is this. You're getting perfect advice in the Watchtower and in publications, but see, there's this gap between what they know and what they do. I'll illustrate it with a particular couple that comes to mind. And I love my wife for being willing, when we were raising our sons in full-time service, from time to time we moved to different congregations that had problems. And there's one particular couple I remember, we were trying to help them, another elder and myself. They were screaming at each other in front of us. What's happening when the elders aren't around? So we calmed them down and had them get their Bibles out. And this was not the first time we'd ever been there, but this was a crucial point. So we gave them some scriptural advice, not too much, but enough to where, and I told them before we left, we had a prayer with them. I'm going to explain something to you. You must apply this counsel. It's not too much to ask, and let us know in a few days how it's going. Because I'm telling you right now, if you call and you're in the middle of another fight, I'm not coming home with you. Unless you have already tried to apply this counsel. Well, don't you know, within 2 days, screaming on the phone, you gotta come over. I said, no. Why should I come over? You haven't applied the counsel we gave you 2 days ago. What difference is this gonna make? Well, you're supposed to be long-suffering and all. Excuse me. You have to work out your own salvation. Apply Bible principles. Close that gap between what you know and what you do. And they were both very smart people, by the way, but not humble. Sad. And their marriage was destroyed. Now, you have to be determined to follow through, applying these Bible principles. And even with that, the strongest marriages can have a change in circumstances. So you have children come along, parents need to adjust to the changing circumstances. And if you've been married for any length of time, other things can happen. Calamity can strike. Financial reversal, like we had in the drama there. Debilitating disease or death. That can place unusual burdens on the family. Now, my wife and I have been through these things. I'll just share this with you. And you have to pray and think Jehovah will help if you're looking for kingdom interest and you want to display justice and loyalty that is cherished between you. Well, my wife was the main caregiver for my mother-in-law. Now, some people, they start talking about their mother-in-law, and it's not pleasant. Well, I love my mother-in-law. Wonderful. I really cherish her. Wonderful woman. And she had a second bout with cancer. And I'm thinking at the time when she was living with us and hospice was coming, so it's not long. It's just some months before she's going to fall asleep in death and be in Jehovah's memory. However, there was such pressure on the family, so much going on, so much stress, and there was tension. It was not normal for our family. So I'm the head of it. I've got to be praying, thinking, what am I going to do here? So there's this, it's just too often, you know, we're all going to need good marriages made up of two good forgivers, as they say. But this was crucial, and I talked to Jehovah about it extendedly. So I came up with an idea, and I discussed this with my wife. My sons were not anywhere near, and my mother-in-law couldn't hear us talking about it. I sat down with her, and we stayed calm. You got to communicate. You got to communicate. As I tell you what I suggest we do, because there's a lot of tension here. You're under a lot of pressure. You're the main caregiver. However, we're still married. We have to work this out. So I said, what I'd like to suggest, I want you to make a list of 5 things that I do that really bother me. Now, at the top of the list, put the one that seems the easiest to fix, so we don't get discouraged and try to jump down to number 5. Let's start with the first one, and then go down and the one that bothers more and more intensity to number 5. And I said, now make my list. Of course, she teased after I mentioned this in the talk last week in Atlanta. She says, yeah, well, I could have had a list a mile long. We were just doing 5. So I had my list. So we get together after we thought about it a couple of days, we come up with our list. So she's looking at it the first time, and she looks at me and she points to this one. It was kind of in the middle. Why would that bother you? I said, look, it's my list. Let's work this out. I'll work on your list, and you're going to work on my list. And it really helped. And she can't even remember it was on the list anymore, and we got over it so good. So apparently I stopped those 5 things. Got into some new ones, though. So this is just to let you know Jehovah's organization is well aware of all the things you're dealing with. Very difficult. The devil has been attacking marriage because of his hatred for Jehovah all during these past 100 years. He's intensified his attack. And if we follow the Bible's advice, our marriage can be strengthened. We can find greater joy in serving Jehovah God, even though our marriage is under attack. So it's really a delight for me to release to you here in English and Albanian this brochure, Your Family Can Be Happy. You'll see here there's 9 sections that consider very practical things, not a lot of text, but thought-provoking questions you considered, so you can do a little bit at a time. You're better off with a good quality consideration of some material rather than covering a lot of material. And then we have a box at the end of each section, Ask Yourself. So the idea is to get the couples, the parents, slow down. Think about what you just read. Sometimes I read that book. I remember seeing his brother thought he was so smart, showing all of his knowledge. Oh, I already read the yearbook, because they were over for supper. We'd be reading the yearbook after we had supper, my wife and I always did, before we had children. So I just looked at him and I said, okay, because I was through the book already myself, but I said, so what do you remember about such and such country? Oh. Slow down and think about what you're reading. That's what that box is for. You can do it cover to cover or subject by subject. It's up to you. Identify the Bible principles and slow down and think about what you just read. Do your best, you as an individual, everyone working together, to contribute to the happiness of your family. Now, further on children, when you have the children, you got to train them, as we said in the introduction, to love God's kingdom. Not just believe in it, to love God's kingdom. And it needs to be done from infancy. And this is not new to teaching God's people this. It's all the way back to Deuteronomy. But I can honestly tell you now, when our first son came home from the hospital, I brought him and his mom home. Then I had it all arranged. So we took him into the bathroom to fix him up a little bit and had my Bible propped up and started reading first days home from the hospital. Besides reading and singing to him while he was in the womb, that probably wasn't pleasant for him with the voice there, but he could feel the love, the music, the love from his dad and mom even before he came home. Same thing with his baby brother. Now, if you teach them from infancy and they see in you, because there's no substitute for watching the parent, the example, if God's kingdom is going to be real to them, it has to be real to you as a single parent or both parents. Otherwise, they lose a lot. Is it real? God's kingdom to you. So what's some practical ways of training children? Well, as I said, you bring them home, From infancy, you read right from the Bible, try to make it come alive. You've got all sorts of assistance with doing that, the history of Bible accounts. In fact, if you're still in Psalms, go over to the 78th Psalm. And the Israelites were singing this, Psalm 78. And let's read verse 3 and verse 4. The things we have heard and know, which our fathers have related to us, we will not hide from their sons. We will relate to the generation to come the praiseworthy deeds of Jehovah and his strength, the wonderful things he's done. So see, are you excited talking about like some of the points from the talk preceding this with Brother Garnes? And the ones tied in, the brother gave the talk there. Wonderful things that Jehovah's done in these past 100 years. You'll hear more about that Saturday evening. But are you excited about it? Or do your children see you get more excited over some sports event than you do God's kingdom? That's sad. Now, it's all right to get some excitement over sports. But more than God's kingdom, you can't fake your children out. They see right through it. The only difference between them, even when they're little, and you as an adult is age and experience. They know about love, justice, wisdom, power, and hypocrisy. It drives them up a wall when a parent or parents are hypocrites. So you got to pray with your children and let them hear your prayers. It's something I've noticed on the part of some, if you sit down for your meal, or as family worship, if you're having it, which you should, and you bow your head, let's talk to the fathers, for example, and he pretty well could tell you almost word for word what you're going to say. That's sad. And it happens. Same old, same old, same old. Rather than something meaningful, showing that there's a real strong relationship with Jehovah God. Yeah, they got to see your confidence. They got to hear your confidence in Jehovah when you're praying. When you're facing a crisis as a family, go ahead and pray with your children. We always included ours when I was facing different things. Let them know. But the confidence, Jehovah's going to take care of this. And pray for your children. I know personally, as I mentioned earlier, I would be willing to help out going to congregations that, had an abnormal amount of problems. And, of course, there would be an abnormal amount of judicial cases. And often a considerable number of the judicial cases would be young people. And so I still remember in more than one place we live, as the boys are growing there in different places, I get home from a judicial hearing, often, especially when some young people were disfellowshipped, and I saw the heartache of the parent or parents, very difficult, but their child's an unrepentant sinner, leaven, a threat to the congregation. Anyway, I come home, it might be late, maybe close to midnight sometimes, go into their bedroom while they're sound asleep and the mom's sleeping, get on my knees and silently beg Jehovah to help me to reach their heart so they would never hurt him like this particular person did, to help them never have to face a judicial committee. And Jehovah listened to the prayer. They did make the truth their own, but see, you got to get involved like that. Have that. Show Jehovah what that means to you, and he'll bless it. Involve them in learning, asking questions, and what you have to be careful with as a parent, kindly draw them out, and sometimes they're going to say something that jolts you. Just stay cool. You're supposed to be the cool one. You can't overreact and start barking orders, or like some parents are lecturers. All they do is lecture. Good Lord, talk. The kids just sit like he's being whipped. That's not how to reach a heart. And when they do talk, it might be something that throws you off a little bit. help them. Say, well, I'm glad you told me you feel that way. Well, let's just look at what the scriptures have to say. Or if you have to say, well, let me do a little research, and I'm going to get back with you. I remember one of my sons, I wasn't moving. See, I think in Proverbs 25, the one would bring it up real quick. He'd be quick to tell me how he felt. The other one would take much longer, especially during the teenage years. And it's like wells, as Proverbs says. You got to draw it up. Some wells would be 150 steps down. And I waited a half hour for him to speak. It was worth it. And I told him in the early part of that 30 minutes, I'm not going anywhere. And everything was quiet. So, if you don't teach your child to reason on Bible principles and have an active conscience, they're not going to have the moral strength to face a test. Because they will be tested. There's going to be the fire. Are they fire-resistant materials or not? See, and that deep love for God, really loving God's kingdom, is going to protect your children. Now, this is very important. I told you in the introduction about adapting to the personality and needs of each child. Now, Jehovah, as the Creator, wants us to remember, especially if you're a parent and you're trying to reach your children, they are unique. They may have similarities, but they are different. And what some parents do is try to make them something that they're not. Now that would be like, the Japanese have this way they work with their Japanese gardens, and they shape these trees to do all kinds of things. But what they don't do, and what a parent should never do, don't try to change the tree. You can shape it and have it go a certain way, but that tree is the kind of tree it is. What do I mean by that? Well, your child, maybe you're an athlete, you fathers, and your son would rather play the violin. And you're like, what? That's sad. I mean, if he wants to play the violin and enjoy that, maybe he's got things coming from his mom's side. You married her. Hello? Unless the brother gave you wedding talk, fell down on the job, these things happen. Don't try to force them to be something that they're not. Adapt to them. And sometimes it works out. Fathers and sons like what they, but that doesn't mean this is not a beautiful child that can be taught to love God's kingdom. Be careful of that. Be very careful of that. So, help your children, we'll list some things quickly here for you, to reach the spiritual goals they set for themselves. Guide them and shape them, but you don't tell them what they're going to do. That's not right. The world does that all the time. You will be a doctor. That's all I heard growing up. You will be a doctor. Lord knows I couldn't even change a tire. My stepdad would not let me change a car tire. And I had no idea how to change. He said, no, you don't get your hands dirty. Well, that kind of crippled me, man. If I was all alone, how am I going to change the tire? And when I came in the truth, Rhode Island, I had to start doing other work. I'm not proud of it, but I went to body shop school through the veterans. And I get into this class, and they said, okay, grab the Phillips head screwdriver. I said, who's Philip? Where's he? I worked in the operating room. I knew all of those things. We didn't have any Phillips head in that operating room. So let them reach their own spiritual goals. Serve Jehovah. As long as they serve Jehovah, worship Him, and they happily do that. Help them to discern the Bible principles behind any rules you set in your house. Help them make their own dedication to Jehovah. And I'll confess, I held our sons back a couple of years longer than I should have, and then Jehovah finally taught me. They still were young when they got baptized, but that's between them and God. And I finally realized, well, I'm going to let the elders decide. They go through the normal arrangement, and they totally agreed, but who am I? This is between them and Jehovah, not them and their dad. Help become and remain active members of the Christian congregation. Live in a way that glorifies God and brings them true fulfillment. And I think all of you agree our children are precious. They deserve all the time and attention we can give them. And I think you know by now Jehovah's organization loves our young ones and wants each one to develop a strong relationship with Jehovah and to love God's kingdom. So, to help your children to do that, to make the truth their own, the Faithful and Discreet Slaves have prepared yet another beautiful 32-page brochure, Teach Your Children. We got it in Albanian as well. And this one's exciting. It's based on these articles we've been getting in the Watchtower since 2008. You have 14 lessons in here. And it really helps your children to have these Bible characters come to life. They've been excellent articles with everybody busy, but this will help you get them all in a condensed spot. You remember the dashes where you're supposed to pause. Don't lecture, don't do all the talking. Teach them, encourage them to express themselves. Mind the things you'll hear, you'll want to write down for future reference. Because children are amazing with what they'll say and what's going on in their little minds and hearts. So try whenever you can to read it directly from the Bible, these accounts. That always makes a difference. You'll notice even with our Caleb video, the first one that came out, Caleb was not really reading at that point. When Dad got down low, so he has eye level, reaches over, takes his Bible, and still showed him Ephesians 6 about obeying his parents. Because this is the authority in the home. See, so don't wait till they're reading. Let them learn early on. This is it. This is what governs this family, Jehovah's Word. And you'll love God's kingdom if you apply it. So use this new brochure to make the Bible come alive. And there's a beautiful thought we're telling folks at this talk, and this is so true. Your children are not much different from Samuel, Josiah, David, Rebecca, or Timothy. They really aren't. So help your children to see how they too can be faithful to Jehovah's kingdom. Help them. In recognition of our Creator and His bountiful provisions, make it your aim to bring glory to Him. And whether you're a couple with children or not, everyone grows spiritually. As I said earlier, grow spiritually through problems. Don't just go through them. You didn't benefit, but grow through them. And my sons will tell you, as they grew up, saying amongst many that I always passed down to them, if you aim at nothing, you're bound to hit nothing. So we would entreat you to aim at teaching your children to become spiritually mature and to love God's kingdom.
Thank you very much, Brother Morris, for that heartwarming talk. We'd like to inform you of the total number in attendance today. In Amherst, Massachusetts, 5,502. Conyers, Georgia, Korean, 630. DeKalb, Illinois, 5,553. Evansville, Indiana, 5,491. Rochester, New York, 4,334. Tampa, Florida, 4,969. Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, 6,674. Jersey City, New Jersey, Tagalog, 1,162. Jersey City, New Jersey, Japanese, 316. Plant City, Florida, Portuguese, 971. Coraopolis, Pennsylvania, Greek, 417. Sacramento, California, 9,605. Portland, Oregon, 6,008. St. George, Utah, 3,511. Ogden, Utah, 6,164. Falmouth, Jamaica, 6,584. Total for the regional conventions, 67,891. Here in Detroit, Michigan, for our international convention, 31,437. No doubt, all 99,328 in attendance were delighted to learn about the release of the brochures, Teach Your Children and Your Family Can Be Happy. You'll be pleased to know that arrangements have been made for each one present to receive 2 copies of each brochure right after the concluding prayer. We would like to remind you about the arrangements for distributing convention releases to our elderly and infirm ones. There are a number of distribution points with signs that read, "Releases for elderly and infirm." If you are neither elderly nor infirm, please obtain your brochures at the other locations provided for the general audience. We are glad to inform you that audio recordings of the brochures Teach Your Children and Your Family Can Be Happy are being prepared. Discs will be available to request through the congregations in due course. Downloads from jw.org will be available after December 31st, 2014. In addition, the brochures, Teach Your Children and Your Family Can Be Happy, will also be produced in Grade 2 English Braille, Grade 1 Spanish Braille, and French Braille. Any Braille reader attending the convention or someone representing him should go to the chairman's office after the session to receive a copy of the release in Braille. Our appreciation for God's kingdom has definitely been enhanced by each part presented on today's convention program. What can we anticipate for tomorrow? In harmony with the scripture theme for the second day of our convention, drawn from 2 Thessalonians 1:5, tomorrow's program will help us to see more clearly the great privilege we have to be counted worthy of the kingdom of God. As a reminder, tomorrow's program will begin at 9:20. Please remember to bring your lunch with you so that you can remain here on the premises and enjoy the association of your brothers and sisters. As we stand and sing our closing song, number 88, we are reminded of the serious responsibility given to parents to teach their young ones to love Jehovah. The song is entitled, "Children Are a Trust from God." After the song, Brother David Schaefer will express our thanks